This is Tech Me As I Am, a video series and podcast where self-love is shaking up the status quo of corporate America. We're diving into authentic stories that are creating space for you to feel seen, be vulnerable, and succeed working in the everyday. So let's be real, let's be different, and let's get courageous, y'all. What's up, everyone? You're tuning in to Tech Me As I Am, a video series bringing self-love to corporate America. And the only thing that we care about is you being true to your most authentic self. So let's be real, let's be different, and let's get courageous, y'all. Today's topic of discussion is one that is near and dear to me because it's something I've personally been experiencing, and that's grief in the workplace. We're going to be diving into this very heavy but incredibly important topic that really many of us are going to experience at some point in time in our lives. And it's often brushed under the rug, especially in corporate settings. So when we're talking about this grief firsthand, I want you all to know how challenging it can be to navigate grief while trying to maintain professional appearances. And a few months ago, I actually lost my mother, and it's been a roller coaster of emotions because I found myself struggling to focus. I'm feeling overwhelmed, and I'm questioning a lot of the things that I've been having to do in my day-to-day life, personally and professionally. It's easy to feel pressure when you put on a brave face and pretend like everything's okay. But the truth is, grief is natural and it's a necessary part of the healing process. And it's okay to feel. It's okay to feel sad, lost, or angry. And it's just going to take time because it's something that's going on in your life that is going to require constant balancing. And so when we think about the responsibilities that we have and the days that you may not feel like you can get out of bed, or you feel like you're drowning, or you're trying to figure out a way to not bring things that you're dealing with at work home. We're trying to figure out a way to have that healthy balance and integration. And so we're here to talk about a little bit more about the important qualities and characteristics that it takes to be able to go and have these conversations with yourself, and also being able to be open and honest about this with your colleagues and the people that you work around. It's really helped me with managing my workload, avoiding that burnout. When we think about grief, one of the things for me personally that I've been dealing with is trying to grieve in a healthy way. I was actually talking to my therapist about this not too long ago, and she was telling me to intentionally grieve. And to be honest with you, it's very hard to intentionally grieve when you're so used to numbing yourself. Something that I have done for a very long time because it was a coping mechanism that I had as a child. And when you disassociate and you figure out ways to cope as a kid or in a natural way when you don't have anyone to teach you how to deal with life, you become really unproductive and you don't really tend to experience things and feel things. And so as I promised to myself that as I had this journey to move forward and try to better understand me, and learning about these emotions ultimately was something that was going to help me be able to help others. So intentionally grieving, what does that look like? That is taking time aside to feel angry, feel sad, relive memories. When I lost my mom, she'd been sick for a long time. I'm just going to keep it a buck. She had been sick for a long time, and I was trying to find a way to distance myself so that it wouldn't hurt so bad because it was like this impending doom that I was waiting for something to happen to her. And over time, it just became this thing that I was just naturally doing, waiting, and thinking that that was going to help prepare me for the time that it came. And when it came, I wasn't prepared for it. And a lot of emotions were in me resurfaced because I was so used to numbing the pain. And oftentimes when we numb ourselves and we disassociate from the things that we're feeling, we don't give ourselves opportunities to not only connect with ourselves, but the people that we have around us and create healthy support systems to help us get through some of the grieving process. And so when you think about intentional grieving, that is setting a timer for 20, 25 minutes and getting it all out, not sitting in the emotion, not staying there, but getting it all out, reliving the memories, rethinking about things that you know you needed to do for yourself that you may not have done, and not self-shaming. Don't make it seem like when you lose someone, that that's your fault or that that's something that you could control. There is nothing that you can control when you are losing something. And grief isn't just losing a loved one. It's losing a job. It's losing being able to be on a team, on a sports team. It could be being able to lose a relationship. And whether it's a good relationship you're losing or a bad one, it's still the loss of something. And I read this book not too long ago, and it was saying how grief is where you have love and you have nowhere to put that love anymore. And when you don't have anywhere to put that love anymore, you feel like there's a void that's missing and it doesn't have a place to go. And so when you know this and you understand this about yourself, some of the things that we have to do is go inside first. Everything starts with yourself, everything. And so I had to go inside and talk to the little girl version of me and give her a hug and let her know that she's okay. And so what I encourage our listeners to do is do the same thing. Go in and hug the little version of you. Because when you're grieving and that anger comes or that sadness comes or that emptiness comes, the only person that's going to be able to make you feel better is you. And you have to push yourself to feel those emotions intentionally instead of setting them to the side and not feeling anything at all. Because when you do that, you project onto others when you don't know what you're feeling. And when you don't know what you're feeling, it could be toxic things because hurt people hurt people. But healthy people are also healthy people to others as well. You're healing a certain version of you. And so I try to encourage people to make sure that when you are losing something, that you're setting that time aside. Because when you come to work, you are always going to be the constant. You can't just set yourself to the side and act like everything's okay because that you're still the same person. At the end of the day, you are who you are, whether you're at work, whether you're at home, whether you're outside, whether you're with your kids, you're always going to be the same person. So when we negate certain parts of ourselves and we don't look within and take the time to be in solitude, take the time to get help from therapy, take the time to have supportive, positive people in our lives that can create that community that you need, ultimately you will continue to suffer. And that suffering will translate into the workplace no matter how hard you try to act like everything's okay. Work can become a thing to distract you if you are not intentional and aware that it can become a distraction. It's a coping mechanism, and we all have that. We all find ways to cope with the things that we're dealing with in our lives. And if you're not the awareness behind the emotions that you're feeling, ultimately, you're going to constantly be suffering in silence and in pain. So what I encourage people to do is when you're grieving, let people know at work where you have a safe space to do that. Be able to lean in and be vulnerable and let people know that you're a person, you're a human first. That when you go into work, it's not just this couple of days that you get off and work. It's not just a couple of things, that the bereavement, 1 or 2 days off. What it is at the end of the day is you showing up every day. Grief is a roller coaster of emotions. Grief will come in ebbs and flows. And what we have to understand and what we have to know is that what we do matters. And every one of us is going to go through this at some point in time in our lives. And if we spend so much of our time at work, why not make it count? Why not make it matter? So let people know what you're going through. And if you don't have a safe space where people can allow you to feel your feelings and feel your emotions, because they're constantly pushing productivity. I mean, especially in America, capitalism is at its core. We constantly are thinking about where's the next dollar coming from. And we have trained and conditioned our minds to operate in a space that is not unique to the human experience. It actually is this way to monopolize the people. And so what we have to do is take ownership of who we are again and be able to work in a place that is conducive to the mental well-being that we have. It's conducive to the emotions that we have as people. And make sure that you're intentional about the places you work so that when you go to work, you can be productive if you give yourself the time. But you have to have these environments in order to be able to heal and grieve. And if you don't, call it out. Be vulnerable because you're still talking to people. Oftentimes people will commend me about my vulnerability, but I feel like this is just who we are as people, but we've lost sight of being able to be ourselves. And so when we're grieving and you don't have a work environment that allows you to grieve, if you don't have a work environment that allows you to feel, ask them, why am I not getting space right now in this moment? I want to show up, but I can't. And that's okay. It is okay to not be okay. I'm going to say that again. It is okay to not be okay. And if you're not okay, have processes in place that can help you get to that point. If you need to take a break at work, communicate and let them know what you're dealing with. Because again, this is an experience that every single one of us is going to deal with in our lives, the loss of something. So if you're going to lose something in your life and you want to be able to find a way to healthy cope, and you want to find a way to cope in a more healthy way, figure out what you need to do within first, and then communicate those needs so that you can grieve. Because again, it does not stop. You have to give yourself time and space to be able to feel. Feeling is the human experience. Emotions are the human experience. And if you're spending a bulk of your life at work, you need to feel, because not feeling is not giving you the opportunity to live your life to the fullest. And when you grieve, because sometimes you're going to recognize that maybe you're in a work environment and you can't grieve there, or you don't feel safe there, you're going to have to grieve that job at some point because it's not giving you the things that are serving you. Align yourself with environments that will serve you, because when we ask for something different is when we get something different. And you have to love yourself enough to know the experience you want to have is the experience you need to have. So when you take this time and you reflect and you think about the things that you've had to lose in your life, whether that's a work, a husband, a wife, a child, whatever it is, take the time to show up for you and give those emotions a place to go. Don't bottle them up. Be intentional and be purposeful, because your life is so important. So the next time that you're at work, or the next time that you're at home and you're thinking about the fact that you've had to go through some form of loss, or maybe you're going through multiple forms of losses in your life right now, remember this. I want you to take this as a takeaway. You need to put you first at all cost, and be intentional and be mindful about the feelings that you're feeling. Because without that awareness about you and being able to give yourself space, whether that's at work or at home to grieve, maybe it's yelling in the car, maybe it's talking to a coworker, maybe it's telling your manager, I just don't have it in me today. Whatever way you want to communicate that, stand up for you and give yourself the space to feel. When you feel, and sometimes those feelings are not comfortable, a lot of times they're not comfortable when you're grieving, make sure that you get it out and you don't sit in it. And you take it and you recognize it and you move on to the next thing, but you're intentional about setting time aside to grieve. So in our next episode, we're going to be talking about a lot of other different emotions and a lot of different things that we have in this thing we call life. The emotions, the experiences, and all of the different things that we as people go through, not just at home, but how do we deal with these things at work? So I'm really looking forward to talking to you all again about some of the things that we need to talk about. I'm looking forward to talking to you all again about some of these things I know we need to talk about. A lot of these conversations are left in our heads and not vocalized because we don't want to jeopardize our jobs. Well, I'm that voice for you. And if anything, I want you to know that you are feeling seen, you are feeling heard, and you are feeling valued, because those thoughts have been my thoughts too. Until next time, thanks everyone.